Lovely jubbly. Well, welcome to the, I think, third part of our Weird Fire Academy. I'm having to think on my feet today. I feel like I've rushed into this a little bit, but it's all right. Let's crack on. You know me. I like to just crack on and do it however I feel led by the Spirit. And so even in the title of this talk, I did put on my phone that I should call this laying on of hands, but then as I came to sit down, I thought to myself, you know what, maybe people don't see that in church and wouldn't know what that is. Instead, what you might see as you're in church and looking around and seeing what's going on, if you're new to church, you'll see people touching one another. So we're going to call this session um, touching one another. What a weird thing to say, but that's why this is called the Weird Fire Academy, isn't it? And maybe you've looked around church and you've seen like people coming forward at the end of church to be prayed for and stuff. And as people are praying, you'll notice how we touch one another, and you might think, huh. That's a weird thing to do. Why do they touch one another? Like why do these Pentecostals have this thing about touching each other all the time? Why did they hug me on the way in? The hugging thing's not necessarily a Pentecostal thing. I think lots of people do that. But you may well be thinking, what's all this touchy-feely stuff all about? Why are they trying to put their hands on me? And so in Pentecostal practice, what we do quite often is when we're praying for people, we put our hands on them. We even sometimes ask people to put their hands on themselves. So I might say from the stage, for example, if you're feeling like you could do with healing in a certain place, maybe your knees need healing. Put your hand on the place that you need healing at the moment, because God is going to heal you. Okay? And then you're like, why? Um, uh, what's this weird fire all about? Glory. But why do we do that? Why do we put our hands on one another? What is all this touchy-feely thing all about? Okay? So, let me explain from the Bible where this comes from. Let's start from the Old Testament and we'll work into the New Testament. So, in Old Testament times, let's say, for example, that you were Abraham's son, Isaac. And unfortunately, Abraham got rid of his other son, Ishmael. Let's maybe talk about Jacob and his sons. He's got like 12 sons, hasn't he? So Jacob and the lads, right? What would happen in Jewish culture and Hebrew culture, and I think in lots of other cultures as well back then, is they would have this thing of when they about to pass on their inheritance or their sort of speaking out their last will and testament, they would put their hands on the person who they are going to be passing something on to. Okay? Lovely. I love the way I've just described that. Okay, so as I'm passing on Liam's inheritance, so I have two children, Liam and Sophie. Let's say Liam is my firstborn, Sophie's my secondborn, and then in Jewish culture, the firstborn would always get a majority share of the finances. Okay, so the firstborn would get a double helping. Okay, they would always get a double helping, and what would happen is they would essentially they would get the good hand. Okay, in a lot of cultures around the world, there's a good hand and a not so good hand. The good hand is the hand that you eat with, and do lots of things around your face with. The not so good hand might be used for other things, and stuff like that. So and it's not that it's a crap hand. It's just that it's not as good as the other hand. Okay, I'm trying to choose my words well, but I'm not sure I am. And essentially, what happens is, say with my children, I would say, okay, Liam gets a double helping because he's the firstborn, so he gets a double helping of inheritance. He gets my good hand, and so I put my hand upon him, and in some way, I pass something onto him. Maybe it's a bit like passing on the mantle, my mantle. I'm saying, you now are going to act on my behalf, and you now are going to represent the family. You're going to be the head of the family. So I'm passing the baton on to you with a touch, okay? And I would touch him, and I would say, you are my son, and you get this amount of inheritance, okay? I'm passing this amount on to you. I'm passing my authority on to you. I'm passing the things that I have in my life onto you. I'm passing the things that I have in my spirit onto you. I'm passing the promise of God that I have over my life onto you, as the case may be. Okay? We got that? Yeah? And then I'd say to all of my other children, I'm passing this on to you and the promise of God, etc., 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 onto all of you as well. Okay? And we would do that, okay, with the other hand, right? So that's what happened in the Old Testament, okay? So fast forward a little bit to the New Testament. In New Testament culture, to touch someone was to show some sort of acceptance for them, which was comforting, okay? So there was a thing about touch that was comforting. There was a thing about touch that was sort of saying, hey, I'm your friend. It's lovely when someone gives you a little rub on the shoulder, isn't it? It's lovely when someone does that and says, I think you're okay. And I guess that's what the touch is all about. It's a bit like, I think you're okay. You're a good guy. You're a good girl. I appreciate you with this touch. And I guess it's a sign of like love. It's a sign of like adoration. It's a sign of like acceptance. And so, even in today's culture, we talk about the 5 love languages, and touch is a love language. So, when one of the things you'll notice certainly about me in church is I have a habit of touching people in church, not just in terms of prayer and passing on something to them, but also in relation just to showing people a bit of love. So you'll certainly notice it amongst the men in our church, because I tend to show men love by touch more than I would show females in a church love by touch. And so, for example, I might give Jane a little hug, and I might give some other people a little hug. But you'll probably see me more often like rubbing a man's back, So you might see me go up to Malcolm and give him a little back rub whilst he's worshipping, and that's a sign of adoration. That's a sign of my love for Malcolm. At the same time as sometimes when I'm doing that, I'm also praying and passing on something that God has given to me. Okay? So, how does that work spiritually? Well, as we are spiritual beings, sometimes as we touch, we pass something on spiritually. One of my friends doesn't allow anyone to lay their hands on them unless they know them really, really well, because they believe that sometimes something that is negative could be passed on spiritually by a touch. Okay? Do I believe that? Maybe. Maybe I do believe that a little bit. I remember once when I was being prayed for by a bunch of guys, and I was feeling pretty good in myself. I was feeling pretty cool. But as this one guy prayed for me, as he put his hand on me, I'll be honest, I sort of felt a little bit anxious, mixed with, I felt that there was a feeling of attraction towards women, which I hadn't felt for some time because I've got a wife and I only want to be attracted to one woman, So I've been really good on that front. I pray all the time, God, take that desire from me, take that desire for recognition from me and all that sort of stuff, and I pray those sort of things all the time. But I'm going to be honest, as this guy put his hand on me and started praying, he was praying nice things, He was praying good stuff over me. But I felt like some of the goodness that God had done in that part of my life and my psyche has suddenly been undone a little bit, if I'm honest. So I guess sometimes when we touch, some negative stuff can be passed on, but sometimes, and the majority of the time, I would say that's not the case. Um, Instead, what we do is we're saying, I am passing on two things to you. I'm passing on something of my spirit, something of what God has given me, and I'm also passing on love. I'm passing on acceptance and love. And so that's what the touching is all about. That's what the weird fire of touching is all about. And so when I'm like, if you want to come forward at the end of church to be filled with the Holy Spirit, to be baptized and saturated in Holy Spirit, and then I might say to you, do you mind if I put my hand on your shoulder or on your head or something like that? And I will pray for you to receive the gift of Holy Spirit that God has given to me, and so I freely give to you. And I will pass that on through the laying on of hands or by touching you. Here's the thing. How do we do that online? How do we do that over the internet? Well, God is far bigger than what we could ever imagine him to be. And this Weird Fire Academy is all about trying to explain that God works outside of the box quite often. And so sometimes it's a case of you having activating your faith by touching your TV screen or by, maybe putting your hand on your own head or something like that, is an act of faith that is activating the gift of God to be passed on to you. And so God sometimes works through those things as well. All too often, I say, put your own hand on a place where you need healing, and then people do get healed. So that's what the touching thing is all about. That's what that little bit of weird fire is all about. In the next session, we're going to move on to falling over in the Holy Spirit, whatever that means, and we'll come back to that in a few moments. So feel free to skip on to the next video, and I'll see you soon. Thank you.